Good.
Time to review because you have the whole week.
Fine.
Okay. So I'm recording right now. Fantastic. So we are learning Bava Metzia Chafet Amud Aleph. I'm basically reviewing the sugya we did. Gemara, Rashi, Tosafot. I want to just fly a bit. Hopefully put the whole thing together and then in recording it. So you can just go with me as much as you can. Ask me questions if it's as we go along, but I want to keep a certain pace going. So we got to the okay. That's good.
Yep.
That's good.
Yep.
Right. So we now are at Chafet Amud Aleph. You count down from the top, 6 lines from the top. Tashma. I'm going to read over everything. Okay. Tashma.
Mm-hmm.
Come in here. It's a brighter. Shataf nahar korav etzav evanav v'natano betoch sadeh achaviro. Okay, the river washed away his wood, or his beams, his wood, and his stones, and placed them in the midst of somebody else's field. Harei elu shalo. Behold, these are his. They're of the field owners. Why? Says the brighter miplesh nitya ashua bialim. The gears that we have, Rashi's gears, because definitively the owner gave up. This situation is kind of guaranteed. The owner gave up. Now we analyze. Tama dinitya ashua bialim hastama lo. The reason for the din that they're his, the fine that keeps them, I've noticed that I filled that in, is that the owner gave up. Ha, implying in the stam case, which we're going to review in Rashi, but we'll say where he didn't know, let's say, but we'll see there's a slight nuance there. In the stam case where he didn't know, the owner didn't know what's going on, no, the finder would not keep it. And the implication would be, even though that subsequently, when he realized what happened, he would give up, the person found it before he gave up, but he will eventually give up. And this is a classic case of yesh shalom midat, where at the time of the finding, the original owner had not yet given up, but he will give up. That's the assumption we're making. This therefore functions structurally as a question on Rava's pshita, right? And then we answer for Rava, and we say no. Here what we're dealing with in this brighter, where he is able to save. He's able to save these things, and i.e., he never gave up. In the case where we don't know that he gave up, he didn't give up. He never's going to give up. Even when in the stomach case, in other words, that we said is a case where he didn't know, but when he does find out, he'll give up. That's what we're challenging. No, he didn't know, and when he does find out, he'll never give up because he can save it. It's got some siman or something, and therefore it's not a question on Rava because this is not a case of Yehush Midat. It's a case of no Yehush at all. Then we ask a question on that answer. If so, that the case right along from the beginning is a case where he's able to save, not like we thought originally, right? Aim a safer, then I'll say the latter clause of the brighter. If the owner was chasing after them, he's obligated, the fine has obligated to give them back. And we analyze. If the whole case of the whole brighter, the Reisha and the Sefer, is a case where he's able to save, / it has a siman, which is sort of the same thing. If that's what we knew all along, then my iriya, important term, why specify in the Sefer miratfin that davka specifically in a case of chasing, he doesn't get to keep it. Afilu ein miratfin nami, even if he's not chasing, he has a siman, he's able to save. Then it should not be the finders. To which we answer and we say no. Here what we'll be dealing with, and the simple reading is that the whole bright is like this, that he's able to save by means of an effort, at a push, literally push. Means at a push. If he forces himself, makes an effort, he could save. Then, like the river's flowing it fast, or whatever the case may be. Then we say as follows: Miratfin lo ayush. If he's chasing, if they're chasing, look, literally it's plural. If they're chasing, if the owners are chasing, then he didn't give up. But if he wasn't running, he surely gave up. And that explains the brighter defending Rava. Okay? The simple reading is that we said that the whole case is that he's able to save at a push. But we'll see that there's nuances here. That's the reading of the Gemara. Any questions so far? Any points of clarity so far?
No.
Okay. The only thing I'm to say that's not clear is when we say hachaba my skinan. So I'm off the bat. I would say that both times we're reading the whole brighter. Well, first time, what are we dealing with? When he's able to save. He's able to save, which is the same thing as having a siman, means that when that in the case, the stam case where he doesn't know, he never gives up. And then we said, but then why say the mirafim? So the truth is, the whole thing is when he's able to save with an effort. And that's why we make the nuance that if he chased, which shows that he hasn't given up, and if he didn't bother chasing, we interpret that as he's given up. Okay? That's our reading. If there are other ways of looking at things in the Tosafot, we'll see. Okay, Rashi. All the Rashis. Here we go. The second line of the Rashi. Shataf Nahar Korav. The river swept away or flowed his beams. Shelzeh, of this person. Umatza'an Acher. And another person found them. Hare'elu Shelo. Behold, these are his. That's the definitive psak. Hachi Garsinan, says Rashi. Thusly we read the text. Hare'elu Shelo mipnei shenityashu ba'alim. Behold, these are his because the owner has given up. So that sounds like it's definitive. It's not in the event that it's going to be this way. The kol shtifat, Rashi explains. The kol shtifat nahar b'korot etzim vavanim habalim yaduba or yeduba maybe miyad to yesh lakol. That all cases of flowing of the river when the river is flowing with the beams, wood, and stones, the owner will know about it immediately, that it has a voice, and therefore we're going to say blanket rule, he gave up.
That's why it says mipnei.
That according to well, it's not why. That's his interpretation of mipnei.
Because he knows.
The word in the Breita is they are his, the finders, because the owner gave up, because he knew and he gave up. Okay, we assume that he gave up. Ha stama, thumb out, implying the stam case. Now Rashi is going to tell him what the stam case is. The stam case is actually is not what's explicit. It's actually a different case. Says Rashi, ha stama ha im haita aveda acheret she'en lanu lomar sheyadu be'alim, implying that if it had been a different lost item, a different kind of lost item, she'en lanu lomar, that there isn't for us to say sheyadu be'alim, that we can't say that the owner knew. Not the case of a river. In other words, it have to be some. I can't think what it would be exactly. Some other stream, river, I don't know, some other situation, but some other situation where we could not say definitively that he knew about it, as opposed to the explicit case where he knew. Lahavya shal motza'ah, it would not be, you notice the wood, it would not be of the finder of it. Kashal Rava, this is a difficulty for Rava because the assumption is that it's just a question of lack of his knowledge at the time that it got swept away. But the assumption is as soon as he knew, he would give up. But the giving up came about subsequently to the finder finding it, and that's a kasha on Rava. Answers Rava in the Gemara, when he's able to save. That's the case of the Breita. Now pay attention to the Rashi. The very important words. And that like it, Dalet is that. Kvata means like it, means the parallel case. The parallel case in the implicit case is what it means. The Metzia acheret, with the other finding, with the other thing that was found, where the guy didn't know. Davar sheyesh bo siman is something that has a sign in it that he's able to save. Okay, the yachol itein siman, that he's able to give the sign, v'litol, and to take his item. So modina ba t'chayev lachzir. I will admit in such a case that he's obligated to return. Now I want to point out something, and it's good the recording because you can go over it slowly later. But listen carefully. When Rava explains that the explicit case of the Breita is a case where he's able to save, that sounds like a physical thing. He's able to save, but he chose not to. And the question, or the whole debate, is all about the implicit case. The implicit case where he's able to save, well, that's kind of doesn't make much sense because we're talking about a case where he didn't know about it when it was being swept away. So then, for the implicit case, we're defining that he's able to save as being that it has a siman, and in his heart he knows he can get it collect later. Okay, that's the nuance of getting out of the Rashi. Okay, good. Then we ask the question: if you're telling me that the case of the Breita, but the explicit case of the Breita, and therefore the implicit case, are both cases where he's able to save, whether that mean physically or whether that mean halachically, doesn't make a difference right now, then we have this question in the Sefer. Why do you tell us explicitly in the case where he's chasing? That's when the finder doesn't keep it. But if you hadn't been chasing, the finder would keep it. Why should, even in the case where he wasn't chasing, says the Gemara and says Rashi, afilu ein beratfim nami, even that he wasn't chasing also, it should, it could be right in my head, that it should be the finders to keep. No, backwards. If I said it wrong, I just remembered it said he made a mistake. Ignore that. Even in a case where he's not chasing, also the finder should not keep it because it's got a siman, right? Because he's able to save. That they rely on the saving of tomorrow and of the next day, and they don't give up. So how come the Breita says in the case where he's chasing, he has to give it back? But in case he's not chasing, the implication is he gets to keep it. Why should he get to keep it? If it has a siman, the guy didn't chase because he's confident that he's going to collect it next day, the day after. He's not worried. I'm not worried. It's got my name on it, right? So that's the question. The answer is Ali De'at Chak. The whole case is a case where he's able to save, but only with an effort. Ali De'at Chak, by means of pushing, by means of an effort. V'im lo yimaher lahatzil lo yatzil. And if he won't hurry to save, they will not save. That's the explicit case. Hilkach, therefore, that is the case of our operator, right? The explicit case of the river. Hilkach, therefore, ein meratfin. Therefore, in the case where he doesn't chase, afkurim afkerinu, he has surely made it ownerless. Daha yadu, because they knew and they didn't save. Because the explicit case of the Breita, according to Rashi, is where he knew, and if he didn't bother getting off his backside to do it, it's a sign that he gave up. Okay. That is a rereading of the Breita, the whole, not just the Breita, the whole Shaklin Torah, according to Rashi. And again, I repeat that according to Rashi, let's just get the key points clear. The words of the Breita are definitively in the Reisha. It's the finders, because definitively the owner's given up, right? Because there's no way he didn't know. He for sure knew, and he gave up. That's what it's. That's what it says. That's what it sounds like. Well, actually, now I see a nuance. Now I've just hit. I just realized something that I just understood. I think the answer, Rashi's answer to Tosafot. Okay, if we get that far, but I'm going to say it if you get it on. Okay, so Rashi. It sounds like the text of Rashi is that he for sure gives up. Yeah, he for sure gives up. But I think Rashi's saying, of course, it was a decision. It wasn't like it was a decision because he knew. He knew and he didn't bother. He gave up. Right? So we're going to say, behold, these are his because the owner gave up. Says Rashi, because this is a case where he knew. He was there. He knew. And he wasn't there, excuse me. He knew because he knew right away. Miyad is the language of Rashi because everyone knows about the flowing river. Everyone knows about the rivers overflowing and sweeping all things along. He knows right away. And the fact that, and therefore we can say definitively that he gave up. But it's a function of his knowledge. It's right. That's the main thing. Is the key there? Okay, maybe I'll come back to that point at the end. So far, so good. Yes. Questions?
Yep.
Questions? Okay.
No.
That's Rashi's reading. Now, different approach. Tosafot. Shatafnaha korav etzav avanav. The river swept away his beams, his stones, and his beams, his wood and his stones. Hachi garsinan right away. He's got a hachi garsinan. Thus, we read the text. Pay attention. If the owner gave up, behold, they are his. Notice the word order's changed and the words have changed. Rashi says, Harei Shelo, definitively they're his, and the reason is because the golden's given up. Tosafot says, no. In the event that the owner gave up, then the rule is that they're his, the finder keeps them. Continues Tosafot. וצריך לומר דמיירי ביכול להציל בקהל אם רודף בשעת שטיפה. And it's necessary to say, this is completely opposite to Rashi, that we're dealing in this Breita that with he's able to save with ease if he chases at the time of the flowing. If he got off, he would be able to save. We knew that from the beginning. That if that were not so, that it was impossible for him to save, hava kuzuto shel yam. It would be like the case we discussed even earlier, like the tidal wave, I'm calling it, the zuto shel yam, the tide of the sea. Sha'avut mimenu umikol adam, that it is lost from him and from every person. Okay? And why do we, and how do we also say it, prove to us that it must be a case that he's able to save? Can't be a case where it was like huge tidal wave or huge flow of water that no one could ever be saved, right? Because if that were the case, if it had been the tidal wave situation, it says stama, maybe it should be stama, right? Because that's the words we have. On such a case where it's hopeless, he would not have said, implying in the stam case, in the case we didn't know, no, the finder can't keep it, right? If it's a case, if the whole case all along is a case where it's impossible to save, then even if he didn't know, what difference does his knowledge make? His knowledge wouldn't be a factor if he's not able to save. So Tosafot says right in the beginning, it has to be a case where he's able to save. Ella, back to the Tosafot, Ella ayri be'achola atzil bakal b'shat shtifa. Rather, we're dealing with a case where he's able to save with ease at the time of the flowing. And even that there isn't a sign in the items. Since that they will be held up, what will hold up the items? Ikuli upashuri, which are two interesting words, but it means like the bits of the river, the jutting
River banks or something,
the banks or the bays or something, something there. I showed the other. There's some sort of, they put the like maybe fences inside the river to catch the fish or something like along those lines. Okay. V'yikram sham, and he will take them there. V'afilu yikadmu acherim, and even if other people get ahead, v'yikru, and take them from these like fishing poles, whatever they're in the river, yachzirum lo, they will return them to him, to the owner, the fishing nikar shehu be'alav, because it is recognizable that he is their owner, the fisher radaf miyad, since he's running right away. So Tosafot is also explained to us that right away, originally we know that there is no sign on this, and how. I mean, he's also answering a question like, how come if there's no sign, people are going to give them back? For the sign, as it were, is the fact that he's running after them, and it must have been his, right? Circumstantial evidence, which is kind of interesting because it says there's a bit of a problem there. Okay, I saw. Okay, leave that for now. V'salka daitach, key term. You currently think Demairi that we're dealing im lora daf miyad v'shat shtifa shelo yochol od klal lahatzil. We currently think that we're dealing that if he had not run after them right away at the time of the flow, that he would not have been able subsequently ever to save. That's what we think. It's like now or never. You've got a chance to, whoa, grab it now or forget it. Yeah, that's what we think. Like that it is proven in the latter clause that only when he chases does he keep it. Does the owner get it back, excuse me? Because other people will take them, the items, if he doesn't go right away. When the bays will hold them temporarily in their area, if he doesn't come right away, other people will take them. And they won't give them back subsequently. Since they don't have a sign on them, right? So the only sign they have is that he's chasing, as it were. If he doesn't bother chasing, then so he's got to do that right away. Vahachi perusho, and thus is the reading of the Breita according to Tosafot. He's going to quote the bits of the Breita and explain it according to his opinion. If the owner gave up, dahainu, that is the same as shahayu sham bishat shtifa, that they were there at the time of the flowing. Right? They were there at the time of the flowing, v'lo radfu, and they didn't chase. In other words, it's not what they said, it's what they did or didn't do. And the fact that they were there and they didn't get up and run, that is interpreted as an act of yeush. Right? And even if they say that they're not giving up, there isn't with this anything. Because certainly, they are giving up liban in their heart. Okay, that's the case. So the case is, if the owner gave up, means they didn't move. That's the way Tosafot is interpreted. They didn't start chasing. Now we consider the next line of the Gemara according to Tosafot. Ha stama, implying that in the Stam case where they didn't know, Shaloha, so the Tosafot says it's not that they didn't know, it's Shaloha Yuabialim Bishad Shtifa, that they weren't there at the time of the flowing. Velonit Yashu, and they didn't give up. They didn't give up until that they would will know that the river flowed their stuff away. And then already they're not able to save. It's too late. Since there isn't a sign in it. There's sort of two things here. They're not able to save physically, and they're also not able to save halachically, because there's no sign either. Okay? In such a case, lo, this is sort of counterintuitive in some ways, no, the finder can't keep it. The kishematzaan bisura ataliyade, that when he found them, this is why it's a question on Rava, that when he found them bisura in a prohibited fashion, ata it came liyade to his hand. Shabalim lo yadu adain, that the owner did not yet know that they'd been lost to him. Okay, and that's an alma implying Yeush Lomidat Lo Abi Yeush, that Yeush unknowingly is not considered Yeush, and that was the question on Rava, the way Tosafot reads it. Umishane, and Rava answers in the Gemara, B'yachol lahatzil. It's a case where he's able to save afilu achash tifa, even after the flow. So Tosafot is saying like this: the Shaklin Taria is the first stage. We thought, of course, she's able to save at the time, but if you let it go and didn't chase, it's hopeless. And now Tosafot is saying, that's the question on Rava, and the answer Rava is saying is no, he's able to save even afterwards, even after the flow. Siman, for example, that there is a siman on the lost item. That the owner doesn't give up when he finds out, when he knows. And that's, like we said all along, that Rava's opinion is that to answer the question, he's to say there's a case where he never gives up. So he never gives up because there's a siman. This is similar to Rashi, but there's a slight different nuance as we get to. Uparich, and he asks, the next line of the Gemara asks, or challenges, that's a long quote from the Gemara. If so, I'll say the Sefer, that if the owners were chasing Dafka, when specifically the case were chasing, he has to give back when he's not chasing. He doesn't have to give back. My area, why specify Miratfim? Why specify when he's chasing? Even if the owner was there at the time of the flow, and they didn't chase. Nami Yachzir. Also, he should give back. If we're talking about a case, now you've told me it's a case where there's a siman. So why are you proving from the lack of chasing that he gave up? Maybe the fact he didn't bother chasing is because he says, I know there's a siman. And therefore, our whole assumption from earlier is challenged. Umishani, and he answers, it's a case where he's able to save after it flowed away with an effort. That even though there is a sign in it, but Torah with an effort he's able to save. Since they've been distanced a long way already. That the river takes them at a distance. And for this reason, if he had been there at the time of the flow and hadn't chased, he certainly gave up, as Tosafot says all along. If he's standing and watching and not moving, that's interpreted as an act of saying giving up. Since that now he's able to save without an effort. And he didn't bother save, and he didn't save. But if the owner wasn't there at the time of the flow, then the finder must give back, because when the owner will know, they won't give up ever. And they'll go and they'll save it by means of an effort. Comma. V'im tomar. Question. From where do we know to make this deduction that in the Stam case, according to Tosafot, that means a case where he wasn't at the riverbank at the time. Okay? he's obligated to give back. Dilma nityashu atala fuke shahayu sham v'ratfu t'chayav lachzir. Perhaps the reason it's specified that they gave up is coming to exclude that they were there and chased, that he has to give back. And that's the only implication. But you can't make a stama about a case where he wasn't at the riverbank. Maybe the rule of the riverbank is different. Maybe if he wasn't there at the rule at the time, he would get to keep it. I don't know. Answer that if so, that if there's no duke, there's no inference to be made, it should not teach at all the words if they gave up. What's that adding? Rather, let it teach stama without specifying. The river flowed away his beams, his stones, his wood and his stones. Behold, these are his, the finders. The pshita de lo mayri beratfu, that it's obvious that it's not dealing with a case where he chased b'shat shtifa at the time of the flow. The katani sefer, because he taught in the sefer explicitly that if he was chasing, he has to give back. So you can't. Tosafot has asked the question: How says that the diuk is the term we use, the inference for stama is a case where he wasn't at the riverbank, and in that case the fighter wouldn't keep it. Maybe the only inference you can make in the Resha is when he didn't chase. It's a case where he didn't chase, and the inference is being where he did chase, the guy has to give it back. And the answer is very simple. You said it all along, because it says explicitly in the Sefer, case where he's chasing. So the inferred case of the Resha has to be something else. Okay, I hope that was clear. If that wasn't clear, I'll just repeat that sentence once more time, because I said it too long, in a long-winded way. The Tosafot is questioning that the inference from the Resha, the Stama case, you can't imply from the Resha. Maybe all you can imply is in the case where he chased, the guy has to give it back. And the answer is, that's not an inference, that's explicit. And therefore the inference has to be something else. Okay. Ve'ein lakshot, back to the Tosafot. Ve'ein lakshot, and there isn't to ask the following question. Tamatzi diak mi sefer taima de meratvin astama hare'elu shelo. Okay, you can't ask the following question. And what is the following question? That he's able to infer from the latter clause.
Yes.
You with me? The reason for the din that he must give back is that he's chasing, implying that in a stam case where he's not chasing, not chasing, implying the stam case, where he's not there at the time of the flow, then these are his to keep. The reason you can't say that is the following reason. That really, let's say that the same rule is true in the case of stama, meaning when he wasn't there at the time of the flow, that he must give back. And he only stated the case of chasing in the Sefer to exclude the case where the owner was there at the time of the flow and didn't chase. Okay, that's the only, again, obviously, I'll restate it in my own way. Maybe you can make a duke from the Sefer, right? The case of chasing, to make a duke and say, but in a case where he wasn't there at all, then he does get to keep it, which is the very opposite of the question we made on Rava. And the answer, he says, is no, because you would only deduce from the Sefer a case where he was there and didn't chase, not a case where he wasn't there. If that wasn't clear, review. And by means of the Sefer, we know that we're dealing with a case where he's not able to save, except with an effort, I suppose. That should make more sense, because he has to chase in order to get it back. Comma. Aval Rashi degares mipnei shenit yashua be'alim. But Rashi that reads the text because the owner gave up definitively. Mashma implies lishna de pshitele, a language that is obvious for him. Didn't yashu, obvious for Rashi that he gave up. In Cain, miresh gufei matzil ochuchei demari bein yochol hatzil. If so, from the first clause of the Breita itself, he's able to prove that we're dealing with a case where he's not able to save. And he did not need to bring the case of the sefer to prove that that if he doesn't chase, then he does. Then the finder keeps it. That's obvious for the ratio when he's not able to save. For two, and furthermore, bigger question: Menalan tahastamalo. From where to ask, according to Rashi's version, that the implication is in the stam case that he doesn't get to keep it. As the Tosafot pointed out at the very beginning, if it's a case where it's obvious that he's given up because it's been flowed away, then even if he wasn't there or didn't know, it's Yeush. That even in a case of stama that he wasn't there or didn't know, also he's able to be dealing that the finder keeps it. I know that.
Wow.
I know that wasn't 100. I know I was getting it more than you were, but I just wanted to get to do our best to get
I'll review it.
I'll review. But coming out of it, I want to pull out a couple of things just to summarize, and then give you some. You've got a week now to do some review, maybe, and get it if you want.
Yeah.
But here's a couple of points to think about. A difference in Rashi and Tosafot. We're now trying to line up a machloket between them. Line up the two versions of the Shakli and Tarya. According to Rashi, what did we think? What was the question at the question stage on Rava? We assumed that it was the explicit case of the Breita is a case where it's basically hopeless. It's a hopeless case, right?
Yeah.
It's a hopeless case. That's why it's definitively
because he gave up because it was
and we didn't know that he's able to save. So it's a hopeless case. But that's straightforward. The question on Rava was from the implied case, and according to Rashi, stama means, pay attention, stama means, according to Rashi, he didn't, we don't know that he knew. Right? The explicit case was a case where everyone knows that the river's flowed the stuff away. Yeah? But and it's hopeless. But in a case where you didn't know that it was hopeless, that's the stama case. You didn't know that it was hopeless. That's what stama means to Rashi. I repeat that again. According to Rashi, stama is he didn't know. The objective reality is it's at the first stage is it's hopeless, but he didn't know. That's the point, and that's why it's Yeush lo midat, because it's hope. Ultimately, he's going to be Yeush because it's hopeless. But at the time he found it, he didn't know, and that's the question on Rava. And then the Gemara answers for Rava. No, it wasn't a hopeless. It wasn't a hopeless. This Breita is not a hopeless case. It's a case where he's able to save and chose not to save. That's the case of the Reisha. And the Stama case, where he didn't know, then we'll assume that he won't choose to give up. He won't give up, ever. And that's why, according to Rava, the finder can't keep it. Then we had this internal question. Wait a second. If the case is he's able to save, then why distinguish between chasing and not chasing? And then we say, well, when we say he's able to save with an effort. So if he makes the effort, then the finder must give it back. But he doesn't break making the effort. So we interpret that in the circumstances as being giving up. So far, so good. That's Rashi. So Stama, I'll repeat again. According to Rashi, it's a hopeless case. Stama is he doesn't know. Tosafot says differently. Tosafot says not at all. It can't be a hopeless case. If it was a hopeless case, you couldn't say Stama not.
He doesn't know.
No. According to Tosafot, pay attention. According to Tosafot, you have to distinguish between the time of the flow and subsequent to the flow. This distinction doesn't come up in Rashi at all. According to Tosafot, he's able to, right in the beginning, we know he's able to say if he moves right away. If he right now jumps in and grabs it, he's able to save it. Yeah? At the question stage, it doesn't have a siman. It's not a difference. Pay attention to this. You review this summary at the end because I think I'm getting it clearer. Okay? In the case of the question, according to Tosafot, I repeat, it's a case where he's able to save with ease at the time of the flow. The item does not have a siman. The fact that he giving up means he didn't chase. is his actions. It's not his words. According to Rashi, it sounds like it's his words, but according to Tosafot, it's his actions. If he doesn't bother chasing, it's a sign he could be bothered. Couldn't be bothered to go get it, and that we interpret as a sign of Yeush. The problem is what's stama according to Tosafot. Stama is not a totally different case. So in the Rashi, it's totally different Aveda. It's a different river, different case. It's a different case, but a case where he didn't know. Whereas this case, says Rashi, is a case where he knows. Tosafot says, no. The Stama case is just like this case. There's only one difference. Was he at the river bank or not? Was he there at the time of the flow or not? Was he standing at the river bank or not? According to the explicit case of the Braita, according to Tosafot, he's at the riverbank and he's able to jump in and save it. He can't be bothered, and he doesn't bother chasing it when it moves down. That's a sign that he's given up. But the Stam case is a case where he wasn't there at all. He wasn't there at all, and subsequently, when he realizes, he'll say, "Oh, yeah, I want to get it." Okay, so but it's too bad. So this is the difference. If it hasn't got a siman, that's what the Tosafot says originally. It doesn't have a siman, then even if he wasn't at the time of the flow, when he finds out, it's too late. There's no siman. It's hopeless. It's objectively hopeless. He can't give it, right? And therefore he's going to give up eventually. And that's why it's a question on Rava. And then the answer is no. He's able to save. So pay attention. According to Tosafot, it's kind of weird. He's able to save. Doesn't. What's that? How's that different from what we thought all along? All along we knew he's able to save. No, what it means is there's a siman. There's a siman. In this case, if that's the case,
is able to save, but not physically.
Well, maybe
there's
physically,
a sign.
either.
But also it's not limited to physically.
Thank you. That's more important. Okay, he's got a siman, and then the stama case is a case where he never gives up, and that's why it's a good defense on Rava. Okay, but then Tosas. Okay, so that's the basic, and then the Miratrim is keep in mind though. So just to try and keep it, I'm going to try my best to summarize once more time to keep it simple as possible. One of the key, there's a number of differences in Rashi and Tosafot. Firstly, the words of the Braita. It's going to Rashi, it's his because they give up.
Yeah.
Tosafot is if he gives up.
If he gives up, yeah.
But there's a difference. According to Rashi, the explicit case is hopeless. The implied case is a totally different situation, a Veda, where the owner didn't know.
No, yeah.
According to Tosafot, the assumption is he's able to save physically. The assumption is it didn't have a siman, and the stam case is he wasn't at the riverbank at the time. According to Rashi, he's able to save. But I think for both of them, oh no, not quite. According to Rashi, he's able to save. Is explaining our Braita, and according to Rashi, he's able to save physically. Is what's meant, with the nuance that he's able to save with a bit of an effort. But he's able to physically save. But according to Rashi, the implied case is he's able to save by means of a siman. According to Tosafot, the explicit case he's able to save is physical and with a siman. That's our case. Okay, and that's the switch there. Okay. There may be more, but I feel like the more you do, the more you can get a sharper thing. I have to tell you, on reflection, there's a weakness on both. This is over. I want to answer for Rashi. No, two things. I want to answer Rashi's the question on Rashi from Tosafot, and I also want to point out a weakness and a strength in each side. So, Tosafot has got a question on Rashi. Tosafot says like this: if you're going to you Rashi, that the text is they gave up, it's hopeless, situation is hopeless. How can you deduce stama? Right? That was his question. How can you say if it's a hopeless case? How can you say that in a stam case? Then we say that the finder can't keep it. If it's objectively hopeless, it's objectively hopeless. Yeah.
Yep.
That's the question.
Yep.
So. That was the main question, okay? And why do you need the sefer? According to Tosafot, why do you need the case of chasing? Okay, so first, I'm trying to answer for Rashi. I'm attempting to answer for Rashi. Rashi would say to you like this: the ha-stama is similar and different. In other words, the main thing we have to know is the objective thing is not the issue. in the question stage. The hastama is knowledge, the knowledge of the Baalim. The main difference is, was he aware of the loss of the item or not? And the case here, according to Rashi, is a case where he's explicit cases where he knows, and the implied case where he doesn't know. That's all I need. It's true that objectively speaking, it's a very at the question stage, it's impossible to save, but that doesn't make a difference. Hastama lo, it's still, Tosafot's question, how can you Tosafot's question is, how could you even have considered hastama lo if it's zuto shel yam, if it's overflowing and overpowering, then even if he wasn't
that's a hopeless case. That's a hopeless case.
Right. So Rashi say, so what? The whole issue is his knowledge. Yehush is a function of knowledge, of his awareness. He didn't know, so you can't say he's made his own stuff. It's true that eventually, according to the question, at the question stage, because the answer is different, but the question stage, well, he will eventually give up. That's true.
Yeah.
But he doesn't know. That's the key difference. It's not such a hard question to answer. The hastama lo.
So, sorry, you're saying at that point that the guy found it, he didn't know. That's the whole issue, though. This is the whole issue at that point. So even though he might, he wasn't aware of anything. So therefore, it's like
Okay, but and then so that's one thing. Okay, so I'm going to point out something that it seems to me that it's very long Tosafot, it's very persuasive, but there's a kasha on Tosafot and an advantage of Rashi over Tosafot. The following: Hachabai eskinan, when we answer the question for Rava, Hachabai eskinan v'sheyachol lahatzil, that, according to Rashi, is perfect, is beautiful. The assumption is that the brighter, where it was hopeless, can't save, and the implication being it's just a function of knowledge. So Rava says no, he was able to save. Okay, parenthetically, it's a second stage. If he'd made an effort, he's able to save. If he's made an effort, but he's able to save, and he chose not to save. Whereas in the case where he didn't know, we don't just that he's able to save would be there's a siman and he doesn't give up, and that's how Rava's answer. But the words hachabai skinan kashiyachol is a good explanation of this brighter, because according to Rashi, it's an objective, physical, circumstantial situation. He's able to run in the water and get the item back if he chases or gets and makes an effort, right? So that the words are very exact. According to Tosafot, that's not the words that should have been said. Because all along you told me he's able to save. The only difference is that, you thought it didn't have a siman, it has a siman. That's the difference in Tosafot. The difference in the question and the answer is whether or not it's got a siman. So why are you beating around the bush and giving me a very imprecise and confusing answer? Implies, you thought he wasn't able to save? He's able to save. Tosafot said all along, no, he's able to save. And when it says he's able to save, what it means is it has a siman. So speak English, man. Speak it out. So there's a real problem in Tosafot's pshat. The words of the Gemara do not fit Tosafot so well. Is not, Tosafot has to explain it away, but that's not good at all. And I think that we've answered the question of Rashi. Hastama, the Tosafot's kasha is implying that if he again, there's a difference in stama. According to Rashi, he doesn't. It's a totally different case where he didn't know. And according to Tosafot, it's just he wasn't there at the time. Okay, he wasn't at the riverbank. But it could. But be the other side. That's the main question Tosafot raised, is that you can't say it's a case where he wasn't able to save, because you wouldn't be able to say hastama lo. Why not? Why not? Hastama lo means, why, according to Tosafot, Tosafot asks a question on Rashi. You can't say, you shouldn't have the girsa that implies that it's hopeless. Because if it was a hopeless situation, how could you deduce if stama, he wouldn't be able to keep the item? If it's hopeless, it's hopeless. Why not?
You can't get it. Right? You can't get it.
Now in reflection, I don't see what's the question. The stam is, if stam is the function of what the owner knew or not. If the owner didn't know, he hasn't yet done Yeush. Even though he will, he hasn't yet. It's not such a question. Bottom line, right now I feel that Rashi's version is better. Okay.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
I told you why. I just give you because the Hachama Skinan, because she Achola Atzil doesn't make sense. Okay, I hear myself and I fear that I haven't you haven't grasped everything I want to say. But the only thing that is I'm going to send you the recording and you got to do
read
Chazara.
it. Yeah,
I'll
go over it. Yeah,
do Chazara because you got a week now because I'm
I
going away
will.
tomorrow morning.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, hope you enjoyed. Okay.
And then when
please send me the recording. I want to go over it.
Do Chazara and Bezrat Hashem.
I did read the English, by the way, that you sent me.
Yeah, and good.
Don't worry about different.
Don't worry if you don't get everything. The main points you've gotten clear. The main points in Tosafot is a different girsa. He has a different and a different reading of the whole Shakantari, and that's great.
Yep.
Excellent.
Okay.
I'm going to stop and hopefully send this to you. I'll have to find a way.
Have a very good, successful